Good evening. It's January 27th, and today we'll be talking about Makerspaces with Robert Pronovost, and I pronounced it correctly this time. I apologize to Robert because I've been calling him something else, but his name is Robert Pronovost, and he is in Palo Alto, correct? Or he works in Palo Alto. He'll tell us a little bit about that. But let me introduce the rest of the panel first, or let them introduce themselves. So, Anne, could you tell us who you are and where you're at?
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm the librarian at Kalani High School in Honolulu.
Okay, Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm a senior at Seabury Hall on Maui.
Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm the technology facilitator at Lehigh Public Elementary School.
And Melanie is at the gym. This is a first for us. Yay! In Mililani. So she'll be muting and dulling her video, whatever you call it, taking her video off, and but listening and maybe come back with questions and such. Thanks for coming on, Melanie. And we have Robert Pronovost, and here comes Sam. Right? Hi, Sam.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Sam. Sam
How
is
are
a
you?
colleague. Sam is a colleague of our special guest Robert, and he works with him. Hi, Sam. Could you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. Sam Patterson, K-5 Technology Integration Specialist at a small private school in Palo Alto.
Okay. Thank you for coming. And our special guest today is Robert Pronovost, who is an award-winning Makerspace creator in East Palo Alto for his district. And so he's going to tell us a little bit more about it. And if you want to describe more of what you do, Robert, that would be great.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me, Linda. And I'm excited to be a part of at least kind of feeling like I'm in Hawaii in a way. So I am Robert Pronovost. I am the Ravenswood City School District STEM Coordinator in East Palo Alto, California. And so one of my big initiatives is creating makerspaces across our school district. A makerspace in general is a place for people to build, to make, to hack. They have many different names in different places: hacker spaces, fab labs, design labs, creation studios. And so actually I'm excited that we're able to also add Sam into this mix today, because the work that Sam does at his school, I don't believe it's called a makerspace, but they do a lot of the same work, a lot of the same making, coding, robotics, all of that STEM work, just with a different name.
Neat. Go ahead, Sam.
It's interesting because we've actually, this past summer, we had 2 computer labs, both with 24 PCs in them, and we took 24 PCs out of the mix and turned one room into a flexible space that we do now call a makerspace. But the only, and we have a lot of robotics and Legos and that kind of thing in there, but the only real fabrication equipment we have is we recently bought 3 sewing machines. So we're and that was because the 7th grade is doing a project-based learning project where they wrote plays and then they produced them. And so they actually created their own costumes, and we just finished that kind of cycle of learning. But that was cool because we got to buy, I think we bought 5 sewing machines now, but 3 of them actually had some serious mechanical issues, and we're incredibly lucky that one of our co-teachers knows a lot about sewing machines and is a little mechanic in there. So, but I think it really drives home the point that you have to be ready to support whatever you're going to equip your space with.
Yep, that's entirely true.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm amazed with how much time I actually spend doing maintenance or whatever. One of my pet projects is getting kids to program using robots, but apparently that means spending, 2 or 3% of your time chasing down dead battery problems and sending devices in for service.
Yeah, that's we've had some robots we've actually opened up for some own personal repair. But definitely, our 3D printers, we have the same kind of maintenance issues once in a while. Yeah, it's definitely true that in order to run a makerspace, you have to be prepared to do some tinkering yourself as far as the maintenance goes.
We had Jake Lee of Punahou on the other day, and he said the exact same thing. He didn't think he would be spending so much time, with cables and such to make it all look seamless. So that was a challenge for him. So
Yeah.
Robert, tell me how you got into Makerspaces and your journey to where you are now as an award-winning coordinator. That's what I read. That's what I read. Come on now, don't be modest.
It's just it's a little the whole project is all about the kids, so it's hard for me to feel like I'm award winning. It's more just that the work that the kids have put into this. That's what I'm excited about. So I started as a elementary school teacher at our local school, Bellhaven, and I did some making with my students, and I went to the Maker Fair myself. I was very into the do-it-yourself projects that they had all across the Maker Fair. They were starting to get into education at that point in time, and the Make Education initiative had just started, and they were talking about makerspaces, these building spaces in high schools. And so I basically started contacting them and said, so you're going to come to elementary schools, you're going to come to middle schools, and every time I heard from them, they said, well, we'd love to, but right now this government grant only goes for high schools. So when I had the opportunity 3 years ago to step into a STEM coordinator role, I basically started planning this as my back project. And I had that project in my back pocket last year when we had a new superintendent come on board, and she basically said, yes, I want to see making, I want to see robotics, I want to see coding across the district. So I said, well, here's my plan. I started with a group of 5 girls at one of our schools, Los Robles, and they tried out basically the Makerspace, but the Makerspace at that point in time was 5 old Mac computers, 1 robot, and a set of Legos. And I basically had the cameras set up, and they asked me, what are they supposed to do? And I said, whatever you'd like to do. They went through a 30 to 40 minute process of just exploring. They all but one explored all of the different sites or the different spaces. One of them really found and was fascinated by the robot, so she spent her entire time there. And then on the way out, I asked for their feedback about what they thought about this space, and overwhelmingly, what they said was, we love this space, we want more of it, to get more robots. They did ask me to paint it pink, and I went for a more neutral, friendly color tones with the purple and green, which they seem to love as well. But so that was really what led to me starting to make the Makerspace, because it really was driven by the desire of the kids. I tried it out with them, they loved it, so I said, let me do this. And then from there, that was in October of 2012, of 2013, because we opened up the Makerspace in January 2014, and by the end of the school year, so by June 2014, students were, they were in there all the time, they were loving the space, and I had other principals and other teachers who were asking for these at their schools. So it really, I've let it grow from the interest and from the excitement of our students and our staff members, which is pretty awesome. It's just pretty awesome because the culture of making is really grabbing hold in our district.
And you helped with that a lot. Just by presenting it, right? Just by presenting it.
Exactly. And I've let the kids, the kids are the ones who have the proof. They're the ones who somebody comes in and they excitedly show them the fort that they've been working on, or the Lego construction kit, whatever they've been building in Tinkercad. They are the ones who show just the power of this room.
Neat. A couple of people came on. Michelle Colt, our regular, came on. Thanks for coming, Michelle. Michelle's at Halikula Elementary. And Janice Lee is a newbie. Came on. She's from Pearl City Highlands. Janice, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Janice? Thanks for coming. She needs to unmute herself.
Okay, there. Okay. Hi, I'm a librarian at Pearl City Highlands Elementary School.
Glad
I'm just interested in learning more about Makerspaces.
That's great. That's great. Wow, we got a full house today.
Yes, fantastic.
Does anybody have any questions of Robert right off the bat, or? How about, did you get grants, Robert?
Yes, so I've been rather fortunate in a lot of the fundraising because we have, so a lot of the surrounding school districts have an education foundation that's supported by the parents of their school district. Our school district is a very low-income school district. We have about 98% free and reduced lunch. We have about, well, it's 99% minority school district, and about 60% of the students are English learners. So about 15 years ago, the nearby parents from the surrounding districts created an education foundation for us called the Ravenswood Education Foundation. So they have been the ones who have done the most of our fundraising. And so they have been the ones who have been securing the funds. I worked through them to get the initial grant of $25,000 to open up our first Makerspace. And we received a $5,000 grant from the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. So it's come in bits and pieces from different places. But I do always like to put out there that if you're not able to secure funding, not to be discouraged, because most of this work can be done very cheaply.
So typically, where are these makerspaces located? In libraries and classrooms, and how does it work within the curriculum? Or are there different ways? Does each school decide what they want to do? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and I would love, after I share our how it's going for us, I would love to hear from Sam too.
Yes.
I know Sam has a different perspective from his school. So our school district, we have 7 schools, and we are currently running our makerspaces in 2. 3 are basically within weeks of opening up, and 2 school sites we are still trying to figure out that space issue. So for the most part, they're in a converted classroom. So we had some old portables that weren't being used. That's where I was able to start this first space, was in a portable that was currently just not being used, and actually had been written up for needing to have new carpets and everything else. So we just tore all of that out and just started from scratch. I know that other schools and other districts have done libraries and have done other different types of things. We're looking at one of our schools. It will be hopefully a teacher PD room in the afternoons and a makerspace during the day for the kids. And then at the one school site that we don't have any space at, we've actually been contemplating an idea like the Stanford Design School's done with their Spark truck, having some sort of a mobile makerspace. Somebody even suggested that maybe we could get an old school bus and just tear everything out and build in there.
Wow. It's fun. It sounds like so much going on. And so do you ask each school what they want, or do you meet, or how does that work as you're planning the makerspace?
Yeah.
And I know you're in the middle of everything now, so.
Oh, yes.
It's not.
We're right in the middle of everything. So basically, the pilot space at Los Robles was really our kind of experimental ground to find out what tools took with the kids, what tools didn't, and so that led to this kind of basically this core set of the things that we put into every makerspace, which includes make-do construction tools. It includes a MakerBot 3D printer, a sewing machine, little bits for circuit design, and robots, including the B-bots, and actually now recently including Dot and Dash from Wonder Workshop. And so those are really the core elements because of how much they drove the use in the Los Robles space. But then across the district, we are completely open and flexible to what people are most interested in. And so we actually at McNair, that principal, she actually is just so excited about the sewing and sewing machines that was the first thing that I got set up for them. Before the 3D printer, before anything else, is a sewing machine, because she's been preparing to teach some of the students in her school all about sewing.
Did you say you had a presentation maybe with pictures that we could look at?
I have a website that I could screen share for sure.
That would be neat.
All right, so let's see if I can jump into that. Okay. Do you see this the site right now?
Yep.
All right, so this is the Ravenswood Makerspace Collaborative website. And so this picture right here is from our Los Robles Makerspace. This was a fort or a house that was built actually in a collaboration across from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. You'll see right here that there were some 3rd and 4th graders who were working on it. Obviously, the more intricate things were made by the older students, and some of the very simple pieces were put together by the kindergarten students. As I scroll down here, this group over here on the left of these 5 girls, those were the very first ones who started out. And actually, if we followed this link here, you'd be able to basically see my entire proposal. Everything that we started with, every book that I read, every person that I talked to in developing this work. And then you'll actually see our tool list, you'll see the budget, and then as we move over to the tools, if you go through there, you'll actually see the tools that we're using, and actually some of the tools that we're seeking, because part of this is definitely a lot of the pieces for Makerspace can be reused from a long time ago, and so we are using Legos that families have had in storage for in their garage or put away for years, and we're giving new life to them. And then we've done some other projects. You'll see this school bus here on the right that was actually designed for the Stanford Design School, we built this school bus with a few of our students. I'll open up our projects. Let's see if I can do that. And then you'll see this is actually from an open Makerspace day that we had. And you can see some of the work that was being done. All the work that's done in this space is done during recess time, generally, by student choice. Oh, and there were some friends and family who came by too. But you'll see through these pictures some of the work and some of the spaces. And actually, I think I will back up for a second. Oops, I guess I can't stop. But this is our Los Robles Makerspace, and it was our initial pilot space. And yeah, so we are. Oh, let me actually back up for a second, just to highlight this one man right here, Mario Cuellar. He's actually our after-school STEM coordinator, and he took over the Makerspace from me about 2 months into the work as I realized that I needed to expand. And he really has been on the ground. He's been running the Los Robles Makerspace while I have been putting in the work to expand across the district. I think that's about it for what I have kind of to share from the space right now. I can look for a couple other pictures while we talk to show some of the other work as well.
Oh, I bet they don't want to come back from recess.
Oh, that is definitely. I actually have a little video that has a bunch of the kids reacting that they do not want to go back. But I mean, part of that is you know, we have been working across the district to really shift the culture in general, that our classrooms are more student-centered. So now, yes, before they may not have wanted to leave the makerspace, but now they're just transitioning back to another space that is also created by them and centered around their work. So there's a little bit of hesitation to leave, but also an excitement to get back to the classroom.
That's great. Sounds like the culture of your district is definitely, you know, headed in the right direction if you have the entire school student-centered. How did that happen?
We're working on it. I mean, it's happening gradually, but we're definitely working on it and working toward that for sure.
How do you do that? With professional development, or how do you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an aspect of professional development. There's an aspect of the Common Core standards shifting to being really about production. So whereas a lot of our students and a lot of our classrooms before was very driven by the textbook, now we are a reading and writing workshop district, and so students have a lot more choice in the books that they're reading, in what they're writing about, and how they express that. And then we're adding into that the idea of design thinking and really thinking as a maker, and not being feeling like the space that you're in you have to conform to, but more that the space that you're in should conform to what you need.
Wow, neat. So inspiring.
Maybe right now, maybe we could ask Sam to share a little bit about his space, because I would love to hear about his space.
Take it away, Sam.
So, you know, as you were talking about how your spaces are primarily used during recess by, you know, groups of students who are just absolutely choosing to be there, we've been making a push to make the space useful in curriculum for like entire classes. So I've been working with our elementary STEM coordinator And the first project we did in the Makerspace with third grade was we had them making bird puppets. And they cut out these beaks from manila folders, and they colored them, and they glued them, and they took socks and cut pieces off the socks and glued the beaks to the socks. Now, we used hot melt glue, and these were third graders, and we had adults doing the gluing, but we have 2 third grade classes with 48 kids and 1 double block STEM period. So in this room that comfortably held 24 desktops, we had 48 kids, 4 adults, and 3 hot glue guns. It was mayhem. It's very, very, very challenging to have that number of kids doing that kind of work in what essentially was 1 classroom. Oftentimes when we're working in a large group, we'll spill over into the computer lab next door and work out some rotation or set up multiple stations. But there's a lot that happens in the Makerspace that isn't really computer room, appropriate. So working it into the curriculum has been challenging. But then there was one lesson we did with the second graders where they were using Sphero robots to explore inclined planes. Now that's fancy talk for running robots on ramps. But we had some structure to the lesson where they had to change one setting and notice what changed, and just asking them to do stuff and think critically about what they're doing and reflect on what they're doing, which really is a lot of how we learn. And that worked really well because I only had 1 of the second grade classes in there, 24 kids, and we had them paired up. We've got 12 of the Sphero robots, and pairs work really well with the robots because it forces them to interact with each other. And, if you pair them up rightly, one of them might say, wait, that's not a good idea. But, basically asking them to play and explore. Given my druthers, the space would be twice the size it is, just to make sure, to make it so that we had more space and we weren't on top of each other. With the first grade the other day, I created a maze on the floor out of masking tape, and they were driving robots around it. But at one point, it was hard to do because they couldn't both be standing on the floor and be driving the robots on the floor. There just wasn't enough floor available. But this isn't the room that's always going to be our Makerspace. They're doing some makeover to the area over the summer, and we'll see what fall brings. But our whole approach has been very low budget and just, do what you can with what you have. And if you need new equipment, get it when you need it.
Fantastic. Any questions of either Sam or Robert? Jasmine, you have a question or two?
Not yet. Still thinking.
Okay. Jasmine's going to be in that area,
I hear.
Got accepted at Stanford. And we found out that Robert is a Stanford graduate.
Yes, and you'll be really nearby, so you'll be welcome. Definitely have some recommendations of places to visit while you're there, but also, Jasmine, you're always welcome if you'd like to support in our Makerspaces as well.
Thank you.
And Robert actually has been to Hawaii. His wife works in Hawaii, New York, and the Bay Area, correct, Robert? You're going to be here in March.
I will be there in March. I'm very excited. Yeah, she's working, I believe, with the Hawaii Department of Ed around preschool work and preschool for all. She actually right now is unfortunately not in Hawaii, but in New York during their big storm.
I wonder if she would come on Google Rocks to talk about.
Oh, I bet she would. I mean, she is passionate about early childhood education. And I mean, starting from her work as a kindergarten teacher in East Palo Alto, it is her sole focus.
I was just telling Michelle that we haven't really covered early childhood education, so that would be great, a great starter.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about it after. When
Yeah.
she's here, if you have time when she's here, that'd be very neat.
And I thought I would screen share and show just a few more photos right now from our Makerspace. Let's see. So I'm showing you an iPhoto. So these are a few of our students experimenting with our first little bits as well as one of our first robots. But the thing that I actually really wanted to point out, in addition to you'll see just work being done all across the room, is actually this right here, which is one of my many whiteboards where I had written down all the different issues that were coming up. Because if you are running a makerspace, you have to be prepared for a lot of changes and a lot of actually, I mean, it's the same thing of being a teacher in a classroom, is you need to adjust each little thing to work best for the students. And so I had a lot of fun every day trying out new ways to organize our systems. So at first we actually had shelves where I had all the electronics housed and where I would show our 3D printed projects. But you'll see even right here, this was in January, so it was just a few days after we started. There was already no room for their projects to be displayed on this little shelf. So that's what evolved to me having to get the big storage cabinets and places for them to store their work, which is also a huge piece of Makerspaces, is making sure that students have a place to not only display their work, but to store it while they're working on it. And you'll just see, so we moved over to a lot of these kind of trays where we hold our robots. They're IKEA, they're pretty simple, and you'll see that there's a couple different colors. They're like, I think $50, but so then to have many different types, we switched some of the shelving out. So this one is 2 black and a blue. There's one that's all black, one that's all blue, one that's 2 blue and a black. So then just it helps students know which one houses what tools. You'll see some of the other tools we have, including just colored pencils, puppets, just anything for enhancing the creativity.
Yeah, puppets are really important. I think we need to pause for a second here and just really point out that puppets are really important. In my improvised makerspace area, one of the first things we did was we hung a clothesline across the front of the room and we put a green screen on it. That is where all of the kids go. That's what brings them in the middle of their other classes. They'll show up to make movies because we've got lights and a tripod and a green screen. But the puppets are really important. Sorry.
Yes. Well, do you have a picture nearby, Sam?
What's that?
Do you have a picture nearby?
A puppet that I buy? No.
No.
Nearby.
Oh, nearby. No, I'm at the house. We're planning.
Well, and
That's
so
a great idea.
this actually, some people have asked about kind of the age range. So this right here are some of my TK students, transitional kinder students. So this was January, so most of them had just turned 5 years old. And they were actually some of the most passionate makers in the space, including this student who actually created a new piece for the wall to cover up one that was chipped. So I wonder if so here we go. Here was the chip piece. And so we created a first design together and it didn't really work. And so we saw we needed it to be a little bit larger and he wanted it to be the right color. So we got some purple plastic that he was able to actually match the wall and then printed and installed it himself. And this is at 5 years old.
That's fantastic. The curiosity is natural, would you say? Because he's just starting school and hasn't been spoiled by us yet.
that is something that I say in a lot of talks, and especially talks where I'm with any preschool or kindergarten teachers, which is that really everything that you need to know about making comes from preschool. It's all about exploratory play and yeah.
Hey, Robert, can you speak to that for a second, though? Because, you know, I guess one of my fears, I'm an elementary librarian, and one of my fears is that I might put all these different tools out, but then how do you give them the freedom to play and to experiment and yet still, you know, the guidance or the structure that they might need so that they're safe and so that even the materials are respected? And do you have some general rules, or is it just kind of like, do you have stations they go through, or is it their decision where they go?
So in general, it has been their decision where they go to. We actually have, and I'm looking as we're talking. We have across the Makerspace different, basically kind of paths, little pieces of tape that identify the different areas that students can go into. So students can kind of find their direction without somebody supporting. So without me there, they can kind of follow the floor to figure out what they want to work on. And actually, I'll display some of those right now while we're talking. So this right here is when students would come in, they'd check in, or if they were new, they would come over to code, and actually they'd come to this coding area, but they would sign in. There's a whole sign-in process. There was a little survey that they did, and you'll see the instructions are on the wall. This is a whiteboard wall with idea paint, and so there was tape that identified where students can go. For robotics, for coding, and for making. And so we did have basically some centers set up. So this is the robot center, and you'll see these little pink spaces on the Bebop mat. We evolved from just these pink dots to actually having full, basically little projects for students. So there was recently a project where students had a basically, they had to find the way to a fire, to put out the fire. And so the Bebot is the fire engine, and it needs to find the path through all the obstacles to get to the fire. And I know that Sam has done a lot of Bebot work as well around different ways to engage students, especially in the curriculum. Not even just engaging them in robotics, but engaging them in robotics through the curriculum. So, Sam, are you still there?
He disappeared. I'm not sure what happened.
All right. But so then we also have making. We had different stations for making, 3D printing, little bits, make do, and so we had everything set up. And when students got to a center, if they didn't know what to do, there was actually informational little cards that would tell them what to do. These are some of our students who are coding on Pajama Day. If they didn't know what to do, there's a little card that will explain it to them. I also created some videos to help guide when I am working with somebody else. So basically, in a way, yes, they're independent centers. There are videos that help students figure out things on their own. And then there's always one adult at least who's in the space who's helping to guide students who need that extra little bit of support.
Thank you. I like that. I like the resources you've provided the kids. That makes it, I can understand that. I mean, it makes it more clear for me. Hey, I had a question about your you know, your issues that came up also with your Makerspace. You know, when you showed us the whiteboard, we listed things. One of the things I saw in there said, I think it said MacBooks versus Chromebooks, and I just wondered if you could speak to that.
Well, I mean, in the ideal world, I would love to give our kids all of the best, most expensive tools, the ones that work absolutely the best for everything they need. And fortunately, for most of the work that they're doing, that is a Chromebook. We found that it does 80 to 90% of what a beginning maker needs is doing, and probably about 50 to 60% of what a more advanced maker would do. So Chromebooks work really well for coding if you are using code.org, and for 3D printing if you're working through Tinkercad or through Thingiverse. But once you get to the more advanced designs, if you're using laser cutters, if you really want to get to super intricate 3D objects, and I say super intricate because we have a student in, I believe, 8th grade who actually designed a really realistic Sonic the Hedgehog figure all in Tinkercad. But so some of those more advanced pieces, you need a Mac or you need a PC. You need something with its own operating system, and especially the ability to code on there. And I say that because I was thinking about the Arduinos. So for our little bits, we have Arduino kits. But to do any of the Arduino work, you need to be on a PC or Mac. You can't do that work, at least yet, on a Chromebook. I found that there's a little bit of workaround to do some of that by hacking the Chromebook and getting into Linux, but that's not a very easy process. I tried it on 1 or 2 computers and decided to just give up on that.
I wanted to interject that Peggy George is here with us. I think she's still here. She wanted to say that Robert was a featured teacher on our Classroom 2.0 live show, and we got to hear about all of the amazing things he was doing with his 2nd graders, if I remember right. Always so inspiring.
Oh, that was fantastic. Actually, that was, I feel like it was one of my actually very first like online streaming events that I was a part of. And that was when I was able to share what I was doing with my 2nd graders, and that was really fantastic. And that, while I really miss being in the classroom, the one huge plus is being able to do this Makerspace work, because I get to go across the district and basically do the really fun, engaging stuff with students and get them re-excited about learning.
Neat. And Peggy also asked about sharing the link to your site.
Oh, yes.
Did you put that in the show notes, or would you?
Oh, I did not yet, but I will.
Okay. She said she found it here.
Oh, all right.
elementaryedtech.com?
That is my personal website, definitely.
Oh, okay.
And then to get to the site that I was showing, it's actually ravenswoodmakerspacecollaborative.com. But in an easier way to get there, I actually have the website edumakerspaces.com. And by going to edumakerspaces, so edu makerspaces, you'll actually get to my website for my personal blog with a lot of the things that we've done, as well as the district's Ravenswood Makerspace Collaborative site.
Neat. There are a lot of things Peggy has said. I just realized, I thought we were just 1 or 2. Here she says, Peggy, you should come on live. I did invite you. You could come on, you know. Robert was awesome. Lucky kids who had him as a teacher. She's happy that Sam mentioned the puppets and the green screen movie making. Amazing stuff.
Oh, and we also, I mean, I didn't mention this, but we have cameras in every makerspace. And while we were fortunate enough to get green screens as well, we actually just painted one of the walls green in the possibility that we weren't able to secure that. So then we'd always just have a green wall.
And did it work?
Yeah, it's worked well, and I mean it worked just as well as when I was with my 2nd graders and we used big butcher paper that was green.
So it's not special paint, Robert. It's just regular green paint.
Yeah, yeah. The paint. I mean, so you saw in one of the pictures that we had the rideable wall. That was just one wall painted with Idea paint.
Right.
But otherwise, it's just the regular, Home Depot paint.
Okay.
Right. Just the green that you don't ordinarily see on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want to pick, not a usual green.
Well, I mean, to each their own. We definitely we've gone fully forward with our purple and green, and I've included that in our in our new Ravenswood Makerspace collaborative logo as well. It's all purple and green and some yellow in there.
Neat. That's fantastic. Any other questions? So where do you think you'll be with Makerspaces in a couple years?
Whoa.
Robert? I know, it's hard to think that far ahead. You're thinking, I'm guessing that it'll be pretty established.
Oh yes. I mean, within a few months we'll be open across the district. Within a couple of years, I mean, my real hope is that we've gone through all the 3 phases of integration that I have planned for across the district, which is first the individuals coming in during their recess and lunchtime by choice. Second is the classroom integration into the curriculum, which we've actually already started with Mario Cuellar. He's done some of that at Los Robles this year. So that's kind of a year 2 project. And then moving into the advanced work. So I really want to have advanced electives for our students. And a lot of this comes from some research that I was presented with at a STEM conference 2 years ago that basically shared that there's 3 essential grade levels for students when they are learning and working in STEM. The first is 3rd grade. By 3rd grade, students either know about STEM or they don't. And if they don't know about the STEM fields by the time they're in 3rd grade, it's very hard to get them into them and get them excited at a later time. So that goes to the coming in during their recess time, the exposure for the youngest students. Then by 5th grade, students have decided at the end of 5th grade if they're good at it or not. And so that's why we really want to work on this integration into the classroom curriculum and really making into especially our 4th and 5th grade, so they have that experience and they realize, wow, this is something I can do, this is something I can be good at. And then by the end of 8th grade, they need to actually have the skills to propel them forward for the rest of their lives. And so that's where I want to begin in our middle school, is having some of that advanced coursework. And so we're actually moving as a district towards having a comprehensive middle school. So right now we're pretty much K-8s across the district. And so once we have a comprehensive middle school, we'll be able to go forward with a lot of those electives for our older students. But I mean, ultimately, I hope in 5 to 7 years that I can say that it's actually the Makerspace is just one extra room in the school that's full of makers. Because really my ultimate drive and my ultimate goal would be that we have making happening in the classrooms, that our classrooms are really truly student-centered, and that's already happening in a few classrooms across our district. I've had some making workshops with different teachers who were just interested and chose it for their Wednesday academies, and some of them bring me in to their classrooms and show me the pictures and show me the work that their kids are doing, because their kids are engaged in making in their classrooms now.
I feel your excitement. That's so neat.
Well, I'm glad that I'm able to share my excitement so well when it's almost, it's just about bedtime over here.
Right. way past, I'm sure. Peggy actually did quite a few comments, but this one's important. She wants you to come back on Classroom 2.0 Live to talk about your Makerspace.
I would be happy to join you, Peggy. Thank you.
Nice. Nice. Any other questions of Robert while you have him here?
Actually, I had one question. This is Melanie.
Yeah.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi. I actually was doing a little bit of research on the Makerspaces and just searching on the web. I've actually found some rubrics, I guess, that people have been using, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the accountability and that sort of thing, especially as the kids get a little bit older, like you were talking about with some electives courses and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, so as far as any kind of elective courses and integration to the classroom, I mean, there definitely it's tied to some sort of a rubric or assessment as far as, for me, it's really would be about students engaged in the design thinking or the making process, not really necessarily about the outcome, but more really that they followed the process and they were working through it. In fact, I'll show you a couple of pictures right now of some of our students who were basically engaged and asked to build the tallest structure that they could. And it was more really about can they follow those restrictions and guidelines and not really about who makes the tallest structure. Just because this team made the tallest structure doesn't mean that they get a higher grade necessarily than this team, because it's all about following those, following the kind of the restraints and working collaboratively as a team. In our individual work and in this work that the students do by themselves, I really am against any kind of, I mean, we ask them to evaluate in that they are writing up what they're working on, and they are writing what worked and what they want to change and what they would do differently. But really, when it's self-directed, there's not an evaluation tied to it. That said, we are working with the Fab Lab at School people who are based in the School of Education at Stanford, and we're doing pre and post surveys of our students before and after they engage in the learning in the Makerspaces this year and in future years, so we can measure that academic growth and see how much it is tied to their time in the Makerspaces. So students actually have badges that they scan, and so that will keep track of how often students visit the Makerspace, so we can actually draw some correlation between how often students visit and what kind of academic growth or change does that have.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was wondering about that too. All of this seems to be so well thought out.
Oh, well, I have tried my best. I definitely want to make sure that whatever is going out there is extremely well thought out as far as what it means for the students, and I definitely want whatever the students are walking into to be very intentional, everything about it. And like I said, that's where if anybody who's interested goes to our to the Ravenswood Makerspace Collaborative.com and to see the work that I've been doing, the whole starting out tab is everything that I read, which if I would recommend just one thing to read, it would be Invent to Learn by Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger. But it has all the tools, everything that I read, as well as my entire proposal and everything that I've drawn up and planned, because I really want to, I want anybody who wants to do this to be able to be successful. I mean, because it's that important for our kids.
Neat. So does that mean you're going to rule out standardized testing?
Well, there definitely will not be any standardized testing in our makerspaces. Some of the survey questions ask them, it presents them with a problem, like a blender that's not working, and ask them to think about what they would do and how they might solve that problem. So there's definitely some open-ended exploration and response. But yeah, I would say a little bit a movement away from any kind of a multiple choice.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. Okay, we're headed toward the hour, an hour full of good news and good ideas. Peggy says she's going to email you, so be expecting that email.
All right.
Robert. Yeah, and let's see. I think that's about it. Anyone else want to add anything? It was fantastic having you on, Robert.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Of course, and I will be visiting in March. I'll only be at Oahu, but if anybody ever wants me to come visit and support with any of your makerspaces out there, I'd love to try to figure out a way to spend some more time over there in Hawaii.
Well, Michelle is on Oahu, and so is Anne, and so is Janice, and Melanie. I'm the only one on Maui and Jasmine. So you just open yourself up, Robert. Uh-oh.
Well, I'll be there the second week of March. I plan to mostly vacation, but I would love to come by and visit some or all of you.
That would be great. That would be fantastic. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we're going to say aloha, but we're hopefully most of the panel or all of the panelists, especially Robert, don't go away, Robert. We want to debrief a little bit with you if possible. But we'll say aloha for now. Next week, we're going to have one of our teachers from Seabury, Casey Asato, thanks to the question of Michelle Colt asking about whether Casey could come on to talk about global education, and he is coming on. So really looking forward to telling us about his experience. So it'll be definitely an interesting show, and we hope you will come to join us. And so, without further ado, unless we have something special from everyone, thanks again, Robert. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to having your wife on in March, possibly. And we will say aloha for now.